The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and/or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated to our favorite shows!
Oh, my tickets!
Everybody loves Hippo Toes.
Scary dog!
Dancing at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting Premier Podcast TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is The Deuce. The Deuce is part of our journey from the corner to The Deuce, where we are examining the great works of David Simon. The Deuce, as opposed to The Doit, is an American. Just listened to that today, as a matter of fact. Not The Doit, but our Pam and Tommy, where we mentioned The Doit.
The Doit.
The Deuce is an American drama television series created by the great David Simon and the lesser great George Pelecanos, set in New York City during the 1970s, where the culture comes from, and the 1980s, where the bright culture comes from. The series pilot began filming in October of 2015 and was commissioned in January 2016. It was broadcast by HBO in the U.S. and premiered on September 10th, 2017. HBO made the pilot available through its streaming services and affiliates on August 25th. The Deuce features a large ensemble cast, as most David Simon projects do, including James Franco playing twins, Maggie Gyllenhaal playing a flat-chested prostitute. No, playing a prostitute as an ambitious former prostitute who works to become an adult filmmaker. It tells the story of one of the great golden ages of all time, one of the great golden ages in history, the golden age of porn. The legalization and rise of the porn industry in New York City that began in the 1970s. Themes explored include government and police corruption, because it's a David Simon show. The violence of the drug epidemic, not in Baltimore, and the real estate booms and busts that coincided with the change. The show's title is derived from the nickname of 42nd Street between 7th Ave and 8th Ave. Set in the 1970s and 80s in New York City, the violence of the drug epidemic is worsening. Twin brothers Vincent and Frankie Martino become fronts for the mafia while operating out of Times Square, which is also the home of Eileen Candy Morell, a street-level prostitute who exits the dangers of the street by entering the legal emerging porn industry as an actress and director. And the first season takes place between 1971 and 1972. This was brought to you by the good people at Blown Deadline Productions, Rabbit Bandini Productions, and Spottin' Productions. And joining me, as he has this entire journey from the corner to the Deuce, is the one and only The Starch. How do you do, sir?
It's the Deuce. I'm the Starch. I'm ready to talk about it.
Jesse,
It'll be a fun one.
what's your favorite kind of porn? No, I'm just kidding.
I have a feeling that we have a couple of listeners out there that want to know.
I have a feeling that we've had this conversation before in a variety of ways.
Yes, we have.
So, I almost don't know where to start here, because, like, on the one hand, yes, the show deals with, like, the rise of porn, and you and I are about the same age, and so porn for us, we don't need to get too specific, because I understand we're private men, but, like, I remember, like, first of all, like, my dad had the shit, like, lying around the house. My dad had cassettes and books and everything. So I discovered porn pretty young, like elementary school, which explains a lot of my current behavior. But also, you remember cable TV porn, right? Like, if you didn't get those channels, like Cinemax and shit, you had the squiggly lines, and you tried to catch a booby in the, a green booby perhaps, and the squiggly lines. And I remember I just listened to our Pam and Tommy review that we did with Alexis, and you and I both had the same memory of going to the mom and pop video store, and there in the back behind the barn doors behind the saloon doors was the triple X section.
That's great stuff. That's great stuff. Man, like as far as my earliest memories,
Yes.
I for some reason I can remember it mostly started with my grandpa, and my grandpa I think had
Really?
these types of films,
Really?
like
my dad,
the
was he
like
a
the reel to reel shit.
Oh yeah, he had stag reels? Really?
Yes, and I think it was it was more treated like a curiosity
Okay.
because I can remember him like having them on and like. I mean, it's a weird memory, and I was really, really young, so I could
you were also abused and exposed to porn at a time.
Oh,
I'm not, I never felt closer to you.
Sit down and watch this with me. That wasn't the thing. It was just kind of like it was on in the room while I was sitting there playing.
You sit down and watch that to be Mindy. Are you having like a PTSD now thing? It's like, sit down and watch this thing. I have to work through my trauma.
This is one of the shows I wasn't able to watch with her, unfortunately, because it was one of those things where I there's no way that I could watch this show and cram it in. Like, oh, that's bad choice of words. There was no way I could watch this and then have the kids anywhere like within 10 feet.
Yeah, no. I was watching this on my lunch hour at work, and it was like anytime there was fucking going on, it was like 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds.
Right, dude. You couldn't it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was when I was really young. I remember my grandpa had those reel to reel movies, and it was the term was Mickey Mouse movies. Now, as to why it was Mickey Mouse, I have no idea. I'm sure it was one of those things where he was kind of trying to pass it off as something innocent when in fact I knew as a young kid that this doesn't look
I was gonna say Disney's gonna have a problem. Not Mickey Mouse movies. Oh, Mickey.
So that's probably where it started, and then of course another my cousin, his grandpa had a stack of these, and my cousin stole a bunch of them one time, and I can remember that was specific, like, okay, man, what do you got here? Here's the Devil and Miss Dare. Oh man, all right, let's go. so you know, it's probably really the whole situation with my cousin. I actually took one of those tapes home, and that was when my parents took the one tape home, and that's when my parents. I know I've told you stories about my stepdad who took the Weird Al Yankovic tape that said Nature Trail to Hell, because there was a Nature Trail to Hell song, a song called Nature Trail to Hell on there, and he threw it away. Can you imagine what it was like in that household when they found that tape?
So like I said, my dad had novels, and so I wasn't
the smutty books.
Smutty books. So I'm more derelict than you. I feel like like you're now competing with me, and I have to now outdo you.
Oh, okay, all right then.
Okay. Like I because I'm expecting you to be like, no, I didn't see porn until 20 minutes ago. Ever. I was in college, sir, and it was for a paper. No,
it was art.
I was like, Grandpa sat me down and was like, well, here's Deep Throat. Learn a thing. All right, Jesse. You didn't realize I was here with a professional. So my dad was not really like he was, but like his real thing was not necessarily straight porn. It was BDSM, bondage, that sort of thing. So my dad had novels lying around, like, and also I was a snoop. Like you home.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. Well, as soon as you knew it was out there, like it almost was like a thing where you had to kind of go out and try to see if you could find some.
Yeah.
Well, it's in this house somewhere. Where's that?
Okay, but even before that, like I would just get bored in the house. Like I got left. I'm an only child, and I got left alone a lot. And so like I would get bored watching cartoons, or whatever. And I would just kind of like look around the house and see what I could find. My parents, I was a young kid, and my parents always had like interesting stuff everywhere. Like I went through my dad. So like I would watch TV in my parents' room, and my mom wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. As long as I was quiet, I was.
That's when they need to pay attention.
Yeah. Rule number 1: if your kid's quiet, he's into some shit.
Right.
So I would kind of go through my parents' drawers, like their end tables, and like, what did I find? And I like found like fucking handcuffs, and I was like, why is he's not a police officer? Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm glad my parents are in their like 80s now, or getting close. Like you can tell stories that really doesn't matter. But like if he also had that he had the books, the BDSM books, and he had magazines. And like I said, like right out in the open, I noticed one day like he had VHS cassettes, good old Surrender in Paradise, and I can't remember what the sequel was, or if that was the sequel, what the original was. And I remember like no one's around. I got left alone a lot, and I was like, I got to see what these about, you know. And there's just a bunch of big tick girls banging this one guy that looks like John Schneider. Like, hot damn,
John Schneider.
But my dad also had a VHS copy of The Story of O. So I'm in like elementary school, and I'm seeing girls get like whipped and branded and all kinds of like bondage and discipline shit. When I got older, so I'm like, again, all the stuff when I was in elementary school. So as I got older, you more access to porn, more magazines, more ability. Your friends get stuff, you trade stuff back and forth.
Oh yeah.
I think I told the story with Sean with the rise of the DVD. A lot of stuff that was a lot of stag reels, a lot of nudie cuties, a lot of base stuff that would be under the umbrella of pornography got those old reel-to-reel footage got transmitted to DVD and resold. It's part of like Something Weird or Soul Cinema or whatever. And I bought a bunch of that stuff because I was a dirty pervert. Nude on the Moon, of which I now own a t-shirt, and The Pig Keeper's Daughter and El Fuego and all kinds of shit. And I would watch it with my friends. I was like, get a load of this. Like where regional drive-in stuff, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then I've told the story on air. I actually worked in porn. She was telling my kids about that tonight. About the incident that got me spliced into a blowjob series where I was not receiving, but I got hit with a guitar. And that guy, what's your name, girl? Brittany Stryker. Huzzah! That's me. And I'm actually into softcore porn too, not doing anything pornographic. It was the story of the porn was they were shooting a movie, so I was like a grip or some shit, a boom mic operator.
Right.
Porn. Yeah. Was doing Hollywood extra work. So all of that to say, so we can get into the Deuce, I have had a healthy diet of porn throughout my life. Yeah. And I told the story about the early days of the picture trading on AOL. We don't need to go through that again. But yeah, I can remember as very early on in my dealing with America Online, trading pictures with people and being on email groups, and just once people figured out that pornography and the internet was a match made in heaven, the places we went, Jesse Starcher.
Oh man. Man.
You go on like Pornhub or XNXX and or any one of these sites now, and it's a Google search away. Whatever sick thing you can think of, whatever, as Patton Oswalt said, whatever sick thing you can think of, whatever you think is too taboo to share with your loved ones because they'll judge you, they've created a magazine for. Because you're not alone. And that is so true. If you're ever just I'm bored and I'm gonna go on Pornhub and see what's the weirdest thing I can find, it is 1 million hits.
Right, dude.
The world's full of perverts, man.
Oh yeah. And I know we really don't get too much into it here with this series, but it's a good thing to note that the pornography industry is one of the usually at the forefront of technology, which is really strange when you think
we talked about that with Pam and Tommy, where what was the first, how did that sex tape get distributed through the internet?
Right. And when you look at VHS tapes versus beta, I think the porn industry also had an influence on that whole decision there. People, I'm sure people did as well. But again, this is an industry, and we're looking at it in this series at the beginning stages of its rise, its prominence. So it's been around for a long, long time. But I mean, now all of a sudden it's been kept by law, and under the rug for a little bit. And now it seems like as we get into the 1971 here and we see what's happening on the Deuce, those laws are getting relaxed. And
I'll tell
things
you,
are starting to pick up.
right now in the world, we are talking about decriminalization of drugs. Like, after 100 years of the Harrison Narcotic Act and the Marijuana Tax Act, and all of the creation of the DEA and the decades-long drug war, we're starting to turn a corner to where we're going into harm reduction and decriminalization and just sort of the tacit recognition that jailing people for substance use and treating it as a criminal thing and not a mental health issue is probably the wrong way to go.
Not helping the situation.
The drug war and the push, the rise of pornography as a way of dealing with street prostitution is the tacit recognition that morality laws, behavior controls tend to not work. Another parallel would be abortion. People don't stop getting abortions when you make it illegal. They just do them illegally and die.
Right. It's dangerous. Way dangerous.
Yeah. So you make prostitution illegal, and you make it so there's no other way for women who. I get into this conversation with conservatives all the time, and it's like, we'll make better decisions. It's like, you never know where your life is going to go or what hard times you're going to fall upon. I didn't know I was going to get cancer. I didn't know I was going to end up being separated. I didn't know a lot of things. And had I known, I might have made different decisions. Had I known, maybe I wouldn't have spent the gross national product of Zimbabwe on concert tickets. So you make the best decisions with the information that you have. And what the Deuce talks about, the sort of transition into that, is that a lot of these women go into prostitution because they don't have a lot of other options. And the answer can't, and this is why I argue with conservatives about this, the answer can't always be don't get married. Mm-hmm. I can tell you from personal experience that women who attach themselves to men, unless those men themselves truly make them happy, they end up living miserable lives. And sometimes it might be better to enter the world of paid sex than it is to be a kept woman by a domestic partner who is abusive, who makes you unhappy, who is neglectful, etc. And who is also probably cheating on you. If I have to see one more TikTok on narcissistic men, I'm going to throw myself out the window. So, and so, like I said, the answer isn't always stay with your man. And sometimes you can't. And sometimes you don't have an education. You don't have a pliable skill. You need money, and you need money fast, because I can tell you also from personal experience, the bills don't ever stop coming. And so we find the Maggie Gyllenhaal character in The Deuce prostituting to take care of her son. And, she's got like a brother, like in a mental institution, and she's giving money to her mom. And this was, they don't get into a lot of details, but clearly she was with a guy, and that guy is no longer a part of their lives. And she is trying to figure out in the 70s, without a form, a higher education or a pliable job skill, how to make a lot of money fast. Mm-hmm. And so, and so she goes into prostitution, and and we see through the Maggie Gyllenhaal character, because she's not pimped. She keeps her own money, but she gets beaten up. She nearly gets killed. And she finds out like it's not worth it. And it just so happens that while all of this is going down, and I love this line in The Deuce, there's this like, yeah, so they came to talk to me, something along the lines of, they came to talk to me about like the morality, like cultural standards. Apparently New York has none.
Yeah.
And so to go round this all the way back to where I started with this, where, sometimes the harm reduction model is the best one, because people want to do drugs. They want to be intoxicated. They want to pay for sex, and they want a few other things. They want autonomy to make choices for themselves, good, bad, or indifferent. That's ultimately what it means to be free. And I think what The Deuce is dealing with is this tacit recognition that they know that they're fighting a losing war. This is like Vietnam and Afghanistan all over again. It's just they're just losing ground left and right, and they're not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, what's the best we can do? Well, maybe not have hookers and drug dealers in the street. Maybe push this somewhere. And so season 1 deals with dealing with getting street prostitutes off the street and into massage parlors and onto porno sound stages. And that's really the meat of season 1.
Yeah. You have, I mean, watching it from the city standpoint and what the city's trying to do to clean itself up. You know, I'm too young to remember what it was like, you know, and I know you are too, what it was like in the early 70s. We just have the history
born in
book.
76. Yes, I was
Right.
too young. I was not out there. Like, I had not just come back home from Nam, you know,
Yeah, right.
shooting dope in the streets of New York City.
So we don't really, you know, we didn't firsthand get to see what was going on there at that point in time, but it obviously was pretty grimy. It was pretty grimy.
I grew up in the post Giuliani era. Like, when I become knowledgeable of what New York City is and I start going to New York City, I'm in the mid 90s. This is like in Giuliani's broken window theory, and a lot of this stuff had happened by then. Like, Disney had a vested interest in Midtown Manhattan, so not only were they like pushing everybody out of Midtown Manhattan, but they were like repainting it. You know, it's like we got to make this classy for tourists. Like, that's the New York City I know.
Right. So this is very, very much a city that's trying to do something here to get things, just like you said, cleaned up a little bit, at least where it's not within eyesight.
Right.
You know, if you can do this stuff behind closed doors, we aren't going to care as much. You're going to have to pay us a little bit. But
oh my God, the conversation when Ralph Macchio walks in, he's like, I'm not from when he's talking to Chris, I think it's Chris Brown, fucking what's his nut from season 2 of The Wire. You're
talking about Bobby. His character's name
Chris
is Bobby.
Bauer.
Chris Bauer. There you go.
Chris Bauer. When Ralph Macchio was talking to Chris Bauer, and Chris Bauer was like, "We've already paid you people." God, first of all, I've had this conversation. I've already paid you people. I'm not those people. I'm different people.
Different people. Yep.
I want my nut. Give me my nut. And Chris Bauer's like, "Fuck, I kind of miss construction now."
Yeah. He's paying like 3 different. I think at that point he's paying 3 different policemen.
Yeah, he's paying like the patrolman of the 14th district. He's paying, I think, like the vice unit, and then Ralph Macchio is like a plainclothes patrolman in that area, and he's like, "Yeah, me too, boss."
Yeah, he's like member of. He got moved to the morality something or other, if I remember correctly. Like there was some kind of squad. I don't know if he made that up or if he, or what he was doing, but yeah, now he's got 3 people he's got to pay just to kind of keep everything as quiet as possible. But everybody wants it to be as quiet as possible. That's the thing. The city wants it to be as quiet as possible as well. It's not like they want to make a show of this.
They can't effectively stop people from buying pussy.
Right.
So instead, they rearrange the deck chair so that at least you're not buying it out in the open where people are trying to spend tourism money.
What is that, season 4 of The Wire? Where it was season 3 when they had Hamsterdam.
It's that season 3.
Season 3.
Like I said, sex and drugs, man. It's all comparable. Again, like if we can keep the violence, and that's the other part of this is throughout season 1, you get different different scenes of violence. You know, Candy gets beaten up for her money by her John. Well, not by her John. Yeah, by her John. Thunder Thighs gets shoved out a fucking window.
Right, dude. Just for saying what her name was, too. It was like,
it was more than that.
I don't know about that. The guy was walking out the door and she's like, "My name is Ruby." And then he's like, "All right, you're going out the window." Well,
it started with, "I'm not paying. I didn't like it." And they got into an argument, and like he was like, "I'm done with you." And yeah, sure, but at that point, first of all, she's not a Mensa student.
She wasn't. She just said what her name was and got tossed out a window. Mark, it's horrible.
They were in an argument, and he was trying to leave, and she was like, "No, respect me." And he was like, "No, whore," and out the window she went. Yeah, I'm not saying she should have. Like this, we're not having an argument that I'm like, no, she totally should have been pushed out a window.
Should have went.
I can think of 1 or 2 people I should push out a window, but that's not why we're here on this podcast tonight.
Oh man, but yeah, you're right. It's a violent industry. There's always the threat of violence. is, oh, I can't remember her name. Lori, and that's not Lori.
Which one?
Oh, the new girl that came in from Minnesota. What is her name? I have all the characters sitting right here, but I'm not looking. I keep wanting to say
think it is
Lori.
Lori, the one, the
Okay.
episode one, the one she gets with CC right off the bus.
Right. And she ends up getting almost kidnapped. Luckily, Cece steps in and
Right.
stabs that guy to death. I assume he died in the back of.
Mhm.
Yeah, he did, because the cops were there checking it out. But yeah, again, it's a very risky and violent industry. The sex work is.
And so there's an element of what are we doing if we're not serving and protecting, and that includes even people who do street work. And so isn't it a good thing, good moral thing to protect, dainty women from being assaulted by big violent men? And maybe there'll be less of that if we push them into into filmed pornography and massage parlors where they can be watched more closely. They're not, because another thing that the show deals with, and this is for one of my favorite elements of this show, is there are 4 pimps, 5 if you count the goofy white guy. But there were 3 there are 3 main pimps that we follow through the show. We have Chris from The Wire. He plays Larry. And then we have Cece, and then we have Reggie Love. And then the lesser pimps, we have Method Man, who's always trying to get candy under his wing.
Rodney. Yeah, that's Rodney.
Right. And then we have the goofy white guy.
His what is his name? They call him Gentle Richie.
Yeah, Gentle Richie, right. And so a lot of the Deuce deals with, and I think this is a very relevant topic even today. It is the relationship dynamic in general between men and women. Because again, and I'm very much, especially for the last 2 years, being part of the BDSM kink and poly community, there's a lot of discussion about, and I'm being dead serious about this. This isn't a setup for a joke, about power dynamics and a willingness, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just strictly women giving up power to men, because men give up power to women, and we have like topping from the bottom and things of that nature. And so a big element of the BDSM kink community is power dynamic. Who holds power over what person? And it's all voluntary. I'm not going to get into names, because as much as I would like to, this is people's personal business. But, I know 2 people that willingly entered into a dom-sub relationship, and the purpose of it was for gatekeeping. They were part of like the swinger community, essentially. They were going to swinger parties and such, and the gal would get a tremendous amount of interest from the guys, but the gal, and this relates to the Deuce, would feel objectified, feel like she was not being seen as a person, that her only value was her looks, her physicality, and she was, to use the parlance, she was starting to feel like a sex doll. Okay. And she was having a hard time differentiating between genuine interest and people just wanting to bang her and throw her out a window, like you do, because that's how you get out of paying for prostitutes. Apparently. Yes. And one more push for good luck, and out the window you went. Anyway, so she willingly, and the important term here is willingly entered into a dom sub dynamic, and the dom's role was essentially to gatekeep and make sure that she was not being beset by people who just wanted to use her as a sex doll. Like the idea of, we're in this community, we're in, it is believed to be a good thing to swing and have different sexual partners and play, as they say, because this community is nothing if not fucking full of arrested development and childishness.
That's horrible, man. As it is what it is, though.
It is what it is. But when you've decided that you're going to enter into this community and you're going to play with others, but you have a hard time like knowing who is genuine and who is using you as a sex doll, it's not the worst thing in the world to kind of turn to somebody and go, would you please fucking handle this for me? Because I apparently can't make good decisions. And that was the dom's role. The dom, like if you wanted to get with me, you got to go see Schmagegi, And Schmagegi would talk to the guy and, like, what's your intentions with my woman? And the guy would be like, I just want to fuck her and throw her out a window. And they're like, all right, move along. And so to relate that back to the Deuce, you have these pimps and whores, right? And these whores are not, they're not necessarily in totem being manipulated. Like, it's not like they don't know what's happening. A lot of this is voluntary. Laurie is a great character, and I'm being very general because that's how we structured this. After 20 episodes of this, we finally figured out what our structure was. So we'll get to specific characters momentarily. But in general, just kind of looking at the Laurie character, she gets off the bus and immediately allows herself to get pimped. Chooses this lifestyle. And when they ask her, like, why would you want to be pimped? And she was like, because I'm here to make money as a prostitute, and if I'm not pimped, I'll get lazy.
Yeah, she's horrible with money, and also, not just like you said, not structured enough.
God hates an unmotivated whore, Jesse.
Apparently,
it says so in the Bible. So
don't go quoting scripture at me.
Sorry, nature trail to hell. So we have. So we talk about like the pimps and and they are very much like the big bitch, go out and make me some money. But the women accept this treatment for whatever their reasons are. And there's a whole other conversation to be had about, yes, but they are obviously people who with mental health issues, trauma, abuse issues, etc.
There's a lot of mention of daddy issues.
Yeah, but either way, there's still people living in the year of our Lord 1971, and you can sit here and talk about and deconstruct it and talk about how they shouldn't be pimped. They're obviously being taken advantage of by manipulative, violent men. On the other hand, it is the present day of that time. You're not gonna fix anyone's trauma overnight. And so at present, you just sort of have to accept the fact that these are the choices these women are making. To one degree or another, these are these are the choices they are making in full knowledge of what is going to happen to them. Mm-hmm. And again, going back to the Dom sub thing, a lot of people, not just women, a lot of people like having someone else take control. It's funny. Ronnie and I talked about this with the Barbie movie. I don't know if you've seen the Barbie movie yet.
I heard you guys' review though.
Okay. One of the things I talked about was that brief moment in the movie when the Kens are enlightened by the patriarchy and they take over Barbie Land, but they don't take it over violently. The women voluntarily give up power. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, thank God men are here. But being in charge all the time sucks. And I don't know if you've ever met a woman who's just like, I do this for the kids and this for the thing and that for the thing. And boy, there are some days where I just like, I don't want to do nothing. Take over, man. You be in charge.
Yep.
So
I've been there.
We're all pimps, Jesse. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Pimps, players, and hustlers.
And then I'm waiting to kind of get into the character stuff to talk about this, but just the way I address it in general. You have the James Franco character, and you have the mob, and and boy, if you've seen one mob movie, you've seen them all. Mm. And this is very much like, all right, well, the world is changing, and we're going to change with it, and so we're going to have this bar that kind of caters to the seedy people, and then we're going to have peep shows, and we're going to have massage parlors, and that's what we're doing. And that's kind of the mob in season 1 in James Franco.
Yeah, it's a lot like, just like you said, they're seeing an opportunity. They want to try to be on the cusp of change and take advantage of that change in order to make some change. See what I did there? But yeah, and I got to say that as far as the mob element in this show, it doesn't. Right now, it doesn't. There's definite. Okay, yeah, this is the mob, but it's more like this is a very smart, educated. Let's go ahead and try and get. Let's try and make sure that our operations and then
Mhm.
and trust is put in the right place. The person that we're going to be talking about, oh my goodness, I want to say Rudy.
Rudy, yeah.
Rudy, yeah. I mean, he's not portrayed as this like violent mobster.
No, he's not
Yeah.
like Joe Pesci and fucking.
No. They've definitely, you get to see him knock some heads. There's some people that get the crap beat out of him in this show, but not, you know, he's not the typical violent, okay, let's start shooting everybody. Mobster. He's very smart. He knows, and every time that he'd sit down and talk to Vincent about his choices or what he's doing, it's very like, okay, well, you know, this guy is a smart businessman. He's a very smart businessman. And he also doesn't trust the people that he works with that are also part of the family.
Right.
You know, he's looking elsewhere and trying to find someone that's not a thief. So a respected mobster. How about that? We'll put it that way.
I meant to mention this with the whole pimps thing. One of my favorite scenes of season 1 is when Cece, Larry, and Rodney, I think, or Reggie, I can't remember which one, they're sitting at the table and they're all kind of lamenting. It's towards the end of the season. They're lamenting the end of the street trade as it gets pushed into parlors and behind the camera or in front of the camera. And Cece and they're all like, "Were you bored today?" I was bored. I went to a movie. I used to know where I needed to be and for how long and why I was there. I had purpose in my life, and like now, the girls are off making money in safe places where I don't need to be and I'm not welcomed. Yeah. And they're just like, "Huh? Anyone else see the fucking like the end of the pimp coming faster than we expected?
What's happening? What is happening?" I went and saw Fantasia. And
I love them dancing hippos.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. I remember thinking the same thing when I was watching it. Like, you know, these guys, they went into this deal willingly because they're kind of stuck in a rock, you know, between a rock and a hard place here. They got the law. It's like them out of there.
It's the Amsterdam thing. Move your shit off the street or get fucked up.
Right.
End of discussion.
Yeah.
And like these guys are like okay to like beat up on women, but they're not really into going to prison themselves. I think even like Larry says at one point, they're like, "We're gonna do this, this, and this, you know, and you're gonna do it because you're unsuspecting. But if I do it, like I am immediately."
Right. They'll know exactly. They won't pay. They won't. I won't be able to get away with it.
No, and it's really funny. So like, there's a little bit of like dealing with race in this show, but not as much, not nearly as much as other like David Simon shows. All right. I mean, we've talked for quite some time about some of the elements of this show, some of the themes, and as we talk about the second season and the third season, we'll get into more of this stuff. But so let's go ahead and transition into Jesse's show and tell, and that way we can get into characters and we can get into more specifics about the show.
Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
I'm finding quotes, by the way.
Oh no. All right. Let me know if is everything sharing?
Yeah. Here we go.
All right. Oh, there it is. Okay, here we go. So thanks to our people at refinery29.com who actually did my job for me and already created a nice little slideshow of the characters of the Deuce. So we'll kind of talk about them real quick as we kind of scan through. And we did mention a good bit of these characters already. So first up is Vinny. Vincent. I'm just going to go ahead and say that for the first. Granted, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, because I woke up and I was like, I'm going to start the Deuce now since it's Sunday, 3 a.m. It's a good time to do it. But when I was watching this, the first like 10 minutes of this opener, 10, 15 minutes when Vinny's making the drop for his bar, he closes up the bar. He's taking the money to go make a deposit, and some people show up and try to rob him after he makes a deposit. Hit him in the head and give him a big scratch. And I don't know if you can see it on here or not. But anyway, I thought that Vinny and Frankie were actually, I thought it was Vinny trying to throw the mob off from like, yeah, hey, I got a twin brother. Look, see, I'm Vinny, by the way. That's me. He shows him like, I was like, I wonder if this guy's actually the same person. And I thought there was some kind of craziness going on there, but no, James Franco plays twins. He plays twins in this show, Vinny and Frankie. But Vinny, anyway, he is our main character. We follow him throughout most of the show. Upstanding guy, doesn't like really to be involved with some of the criminal undergoings that's going on around him.
He outright says when they're trying to get him to manage the massage parlor, and I think it's around the time that they're gonna expand the massage parlors and like, make them bigger and do more of them. And he's just had his fill, and he was like, I got into bed with the mafia to pay off my brother's gambling debts. Yeah. And now I'm full on drowning in mob
right
shit.
in it. And
he has some moral and ethics to him in the sense of like his talent is marketing and building up crowds for businesses. He's not a gangster. He's not into the violence, and he's not into mistreating women as such. Like, he falls in love with the Abby character, who's a snooty ex-school person, who, like, I'm sure there's a picture of in here somewhere.
Yeah, she's
and he's like really sweet on her and to her. Like, he's not a bad dude, and so they're like, we want you to like manage a whorehouse. He's like, I'd rather not. There's Chris Bauer, like, speak for yourself.
Right. Yeah, well, he was against it at first too, and then he was Bobby, Chris Bauer's character, was like, it took him an episode before he's like, oh, this is a good idea. I should get in bed with these guys. Yeah.
Well, again, I want to talk about leverage points for just a second, because a lot of this show, and it's kind of like a key to the writing, is nobody does anything because this just feels right to me. I don't have to do any of this, but I'm going to, because this is really my life's calling. None of that. I gotta take care of my son, and I have no other way of doing it. I gotta pay off my brother's gambling debts. I had a heart attack on a job site, and I need money to take care of my 87 kids because I'm, Irish. What? I need money. How about you leave my sister alone? How about that? So, like, everybody is doing things because out of necessity, not out of love, and that's a big part of this series.
Yeah. With Vinny's character too, what's interesting about him is that he gets singled out by the mom. Number one, they're trying to find his twin brother, but the other thing is the reason why they're gravitating towards him and trying to bring him in is because, number one, he's a good businessman. He took there was like was it a Chinese joint that he was helping manage, and it was completely dead, and he was able to introduce a neat little business idea and turn it around.
Yeah, turn into
the other. Yeah, pretty much. And then the other thing is that he's trustworthy. There's a bunch of times throughout these early episodes where, hey, I'm trying to pay off my brother's debt, and I can't remember the guy's name. I'm going to call him Tom Hollandaise, because he looks just like Tom Holland, but he's a lot older.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, he shows up and he's like, I understand you're trying to help out. The till looks kind of full though. And he's like, I'm not stealing from Mr. Kim. I'm not stealing from him. Right. So again, this is what Rudy's character, Rudy is looking for, as far as someone to bring in. Number one, manage a business, can bring a business from shithole to, being a diamond mine if possible, and somebody that's not going to skim. Right. But yeah, he's a very interesting character because, just like you said, he's got these morals to him, and we're watching him get involved with all these criminal aspects, I wouldn't say not willingly, but more along the lines of like, well, I've got to do this in order to do this, but he definitely struggles with the choices that he has to make. So up next is,
hang on, before you move on. Oh, okay. I have to address this now, because like one of the gimmicks about this show is James Franco plays twins.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He plays Vinny and Frankie. Right. And it's good. I mean, dude, it's pulled off very well. Would you say?
It is fucking seamless.
Yeah, dude. It really is. Frankie is man, best way to describe him is like the dark shadow of Vinny, where this guy goes around, he has probably gambling debts in 5-6 different cities.
He's very carny. He's always got a gimmick. He's got a plan. He's got some way to get over, but he doesn't have enough juice. He can only go so far before somebody like figures him out, and then it's like, all right, let's reel this in.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments of him is when he decides he's going to go. The Irish show up at the bar, and apparently they have a deal where they have the jukebox and the pool table, and there's a cigarette machine in the bar. They get the take off of that, and they show up, and they are like running their mouths, and Frankie comes out with a baseball bat or a sledgehammer or something and just starts driving it through all the machines because he's a loose cannon. That's probably the best way to put it. A loose cannon. All right. And here we were talking about Lori earlier. I don't know what much else can be said. Her arc in the series is she gets off the bus, shows up in New York, and she came here to make some money
becomes Cece's bottom bitch.
Yeah. And she ends up getting into the pornography business as well.
Right.
And there's that one moment where, now you got to think, folks, this is 1971. So these films are you can help me out here, and because you might know better, but they're being sold. You can't you're supposed to not be able to view them. There's certain aspects of these films that are cut out specifically. But anyway, you could go into I can't remember the name, Fat Mooney, I think is his name, Fat Mooney's shop. And you could go in there and you can watch a peep show. You watch the film. And anyway, my favorite moment is her going in and watching her own film while everybody else is standing behind her, waiting for her to be done watching the film because they're wanting to watch this peep show. And she's so excited that she's a star. And she turns around and she tells the guy standing beside her, like, come over here and take a look at that. And she's like all proud of it. But anyway, she ends up getting involved. She's definitely still part of the she's still out there doing the sex work, but she's also a star and making some money in the films on the side.
I think Lori's an important character in that sense. Like Lori and Maggie Gyllenhaal's character are both, I think, important because, in all fairness, like you think about like prostitution. So in the year of our Lord 2023, like the modern prostitute is the OnlyFans girl. Okay, there are girls that are just like, you know what? I have no other discernible talent, but I am pretty.
Here's my feet.
I am pretty. And I have assets, physical assets, attributes that people would want to look at and pay for. And I'll do this for a short period of time, make a halfway decent amount of money, doing things that come quite naturally to me, like marketing yourself through social media. And there's, I think, an element of our culture that looks down on sex work. And there's an element that's rising that's like normalized sex work. And this goes to the conversation because, I just listened to this between yesterday and today. Our discussion about Pam and Tommy, where shouldn't sex work be a choice, not something that is held to moral judgment? I don't think sex work is good or bad. I think it's just a thing that exists. And people, if you're forced into it against your will, that's a problem. That is a problem. Yes. Yeah, that should be stopped. But if you, of sound mind, and maybe, a few other choices in life, decide I could, work hard and struggle and scrape by and maintain what I think is my dignity, or I could do this. But, I say maintain your dignity, but that's also a judgment. That is definitely a Western cultural judgment thing, because some people would argue, why can't you be a dignified sex worker? Why is being a sex worker inherently undignified? And the nice thing about Lori and about the Maggie Gyllenhaal character, Candy, is that they're both actively making choices. Like that is you're going to see in season 2 and 3, Lori gets big in the porno industry. And it's something she's like real proud of. And I'm not entirely certain there's anything wrong with that. And this isn't like me going like, pro prostitution, pro porn, whatever. I can and I will, but I'm making the argument from an objective standpoint that maybe as a culture we would be better off not shaming people for the active choice of partaking in sex work,
especially if it's not hurting anybody.
Yeah, if everyone's kind of an active participant and no one's getting hurt by this and we're all making good choices. I mean, one of the things that has come out in the last 10, 20 years or so is that if we would like let, and it's actually, this was funny because it was said in The Wire too, you know, about prostitutes from Europe and, Asian, whatever. And somebody made the suggestion, I think it's Beatty who makes the suggestion, like they should get a union.
Oh, yeah.
But when you allow sex work, just like abortion, to exist in the light, then it finds structure, it finds propriety, it finds rules, it finds protections for people. When you cast it into the shadows for no other reason than, well, I have a moral issue with this. I don't. When your whole thing is sort of a Judeo-Christian, like, anti-vice thing, you just push it into the shadows where pimps prey on you, muggers prey on you, disease preys on you. And really, who is benefiting by any of this? Mm-hmm. It's not like you can. People are not convinced that this is a bad idea. It's like, again, I keep going back to the abortion thing because it's probably the best example of this. No one is ever convinced abortion is a bad idea, but when they don't already think that. So people who want an abortion will get one whether they're legal or not. They're just going to take the risks of an illegal one. Mm-hmm. When you make a behavioral thing a crime, you're not changing society. You're not changing how society feels about anything. You're just making it harder for people to do it legally.
Right.
And for me, that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a very libertarian stance I take on a lot of this stuff.
Next up, Ashley. So she has quite the attitude. She is the one that's actually kind of replaced by Lori.
Yeah, she was Cece's bottom bitch, and then new tale of coming.
Right. So Ashley, once they start building the parlors, as she starts to realize, okay, I'm done with this life. Mm-hmm. And she's throughout the series, she's here and there, but she's definitely one of the pros that we get to see do her thing. She kind of falls a little bit for Frankie. They begin to have a relationship, and then then at that point she's made a decision that she's going to leave with the help of Abby. Abby's like, look, if you want out of here, which Abby tends to want to get these ladies out of this lifestyle. She tries that with
Abby is like the resident feminist of the show.
Okay.
But the other side of that is Abby is one of those, there's only one kind of feminism. And that is the liberated woman not doing sex work. It's funny. I just reposted my wife and her friend talking about Black Widow in the podcast titled A Feminist Perspective of Black Widow. And one of the things, and this was, I think, like the best clip of the whole show, when I put it on TikTok, was feminism is the ability to make a choice on how you want to lead your life as a woman without anyone telling you your choice is bad. Mm-hmm. Not that you should only have one choice, and that is the only way to define yourself as a woman. And that's kind of where that's Abby's journey, is that she's very much coming into this like, there's only one kind of feminism. All women should be doing the same thing. And that's not feminism. That's not giving anyone choice. The whole idea behind this, feminism, the belief or practice that women should have the same kind of choices and opportunities in life as men. That's feminism. Not women should be giant 6 foot tall Amazonian fucking
right.
And never be a mother, and and never have sex with anyone except other women. It's like it's ridiculous. Some of like, I think it's called 4th generation feminism. Like, it's really ridiculous.
4th generation feminism.
Look it up.
All right. Well, yeah, by the end of this season, Ashley is on her way back to West Virginia. Or no, it wasn't West Virginia, it was somewhere else. I think it was like Abby's sister or something like that. But anyway, she's left CC and she's on her way out of the,
it's like a fucking analog for like the Underground Railroad.
Right, dude. Seriously. Here we have Darlene. Darlene, played by Dominique Fishback again.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, I can't
Hang on,
remember
Jesse. If
who.
you could be a prostitute, you could prostitute your little tushy. Would you be the
Okay.
kind of prostitute that likes to like lay with old men and watch movies?
Why
What a
not?
gig!
Why?
What a
Why
gig.
not? She's kind of like this. Her character's like this kind. I wouldn't say intellectual, but she's definitely curious, and she's got an appreciation for film for sure. Because she, just like you said, one of the things that she does, she goes over to this old man's house and he just wants to watch a movie with her, and they do, and she's moved by a lot of it too. What she sees,
she's into it.
She's also very smart when it comes to like realizing that, hey, I do this once, I get paid once. You're taking a film and producing all these copies of it and getting paid multiple times on my work, and boy, oh boy. Was I sitting there thinking like this is the artist's?
Candy has the same argument. Candy has the same argument when she goes to the porn guy and she's like, "Wait, I get paid for the one shoot, but you get paid as many times as you sell copies of this tape." And he looks at her like, "What do you want? Residuals?"
Right. Exactly.
Years later, the WWE will strike a deal with NBC Comcast Pornhub, and they'll get on Peacock. And they, oh no, even before that, sorry, I'm telling the story wrong. Years later, the WWE will figure out, hey, there's something to be said for the streaming. Let's put all of our pay-per-views on there and all of our content. And CM Punk's going, you're going to pay us at all for any of this? Because that's how Spotify works. You know that? Like every time you play Enter Sandman, Metallica gets like a penny.
They get like a penny. Yeah. Yeah. There's Candy.
Yeah, she is. Good old Maggie Gyllenhaal. Dude, she takes an ass whooping like Cactus fucking Jack in this show. That one scene where she pepper sprays the guy and she can't fucking operate the door.
Yeah, she can't get out of there.
I tell you, like, The Deuce is not a horror show. It is a drama about the rise of pornography and massage parlors and, the malaise of the 70s sort of expressing itself in crime. And I'll tell you though, like the way it's shot, her going for the door and having her fucking head just snap back by this guy was like more horrifying than anything I've seen in a horror movie this year.
The thing is that, I mean, the wig should have come off. It was on there pretty good.
I was gonna say,
he grabbed a hold
of her fucking head.
I know, dude. Yeah, she got beat up pretty good. And I think that was it, though. That was it for her. That's where she made the decision. I'm not going back. And yeah, I mean, she's essentially just
it was the conversation with Rodney that did her in.
Okay, all right. Well, she's doing this for her son. Essentially, her son who's living with her mother. And she's sending money, trying to help take care of him, but obviously she's not in his life very much. She does show up, but at some point she was just finally like, her mom knows what she does, and she's finally like, no, look, I'm kind
not
of
thrilled about it.
No, she is not. I'm not going to go back to that, but she doesn't really. I don't think she tells her mom she's going into film, but I don't think she tells her what kind. You mentioned her brother who was put into a psychiatric ward by her father because he was gay. And
he's claiming to not be gay. This is like early trans. Because what he's doing is, or drag at the very least.
Okay.
What he talks about is trying on women's clothing. It makes him feel good. But he's like, I like women. And that the argument that he has an argument with Candy. So, I mean, like, there's an argument to be made of like, he's just too ashamed to admit that he is queer.
Right.
But
that's kind of what I thought was going on. I thought he was like, if I say that I am, then I am, and I can't say that.
Right. Well, so it could go either way. Because I watched that today, and I don't think I had any thoughts about it the first time I saw The Deuce, and I watched this contemporaneously when it came out. I was like, oh, new David Simon, hot diggity.
Lots of boobies.
Yes. So I watched this on Sundays when it initially aired. And I didn't even remember that scene. So like, it didn't move me the first time I saw it. And I'm watching it this time and I'm like, so Eddie Izzard talks about being drag and, feeling pretty, dressing in women's clothing and, and wanting breasts and everything else, but still very much wanting to be a man. And like, he never says I'm a woman. But he does talk about like wanting to wear women's clothing and wear makeup and have boobs, but still have his penis and still have sex with women. And it is, and like we don't need to get into, especially if it's making you uncomfortable. Like we don't need to get into gender fluidity and the whole idea of what are your pronouns. And I'm really not making a joke here. Is it he, she, him, he, or is it they, them? I'm going to talk a little bit about something personal. Don't drag me. My daughter does not identify as trans or anything like that. But she's going on 13. But her pronouns is they, them, because she does not want to be pigeonholed into a particular gender and all that entails. So if you say my pronouns are him, are she, her, well, then you're a girl, and there's an expectation that girls be XYZ, even in the year of our Lord 2023, where there's no expectations of anyone. It's a fucking lollapalooza out there. Figure it out. But she is, in her youth, very conscious about maintaining ego and identity integrity and not having anything foisted upon her. And so she says her pronouns are they, them. Now she's going on 13. Who the fuck knows how she's going to feel in 5 years? But I don't get on her case about this. I don't get on her case about any of this. She's fucking, I don't care. What I want her to do is pass math and not go to summer school again. I'm I'm less interested in her fucking pronouns at this point. But I think my daughter speaks for the trees in the sense of there are people out there that don't want to be told if you're this gender, you have to be this way, because it goes beyond clothing, it goes beyond sexual preference, it goes beyond gender norms and expectations. It's a huge thing. And is the Deuce about anything besides choice, autonomy, the freedom to be who you are at all times? Agency, exactly. And so to sort of round this all the way back to Candy's brother, he's like, I like girls. And Candy's like, yeah, what girl you ever been with? And he's like, it's not the point. It's like the incel argument. Like, I like girls. I just can't seem to get laid because I'm a neckbeard. And I won't shut up about Star Wars. Let me tell you, boys, that's your first mistake. Stop talking to chicks about Star Wars. There's like there's one Star Wars girl out of 100. Get a new hobby.
That's unfortunate.
So my point being with all of that, going back to the brother, he's like, I just like to wear women's clothing. Like, that doesn't make me gay. But in the year of our Lord 1971, you put on a fucking dress, you're queer. You're a fag.
And you're going to go and you're going to get shock treatment. Shock treatment.
Yeah, we're going to electrocute the queer right out of you.
Wow.
I mean, it works great for depression. Why not?
Yeah.
Come on, Jesse. Look, you're just like, if I have to be essential one more day, if one of my kids breaks another fucking bunk bed, my daughter slams another kid's hand in the fucking door. I know all your stories.
You do. You do.
If I have to deal with another fucking one of my homeless relatives fucking having to camp out on my doorstep or some shit, I'm gonna slam my own dick in the door.
Go ahead.
You're just like, I wish someone would just electrocute me and make me happy.
Please. The new thing now is my youngest. All right. He will have a complete meltdown if you do not get him up at 5:30 in the morning. Yes, he is 9.
Army?
If you do not get him up at 5:30, if you don't shake him awake, then and he doesn't have enough time to watch his YouTube before he goes to school, the day is ruined. I woke him up at 7. He had a whole hour to go. The whole hour he stomped around. I'm like, dude, you're wasting time. You could be watching shows right now. That was not the point, sir. No, his point. He had
motherfucker. You didn't wake me up at 5:30 like 5:30 you fucking derelict
in the morning. I was like, oh my gosh. I remember that what's funny is that happened at the end of last school year, and I completely forgot about it over the summer. I'm like, oh shit, did I fuck up? And then I had to deal with the wife. I had to deal with the wife after that.
Oh my god, my 10-year-old's mad. Like, I gotta run for it.
7:30, I go downstairs. I'm like, it's time for me to go to work. Mindy had him for another half hour, 45 minutes, and she did not let up on me either.
I was gonna say,
thanks a lot, Jess.
Was your name Mud by the end of that day?
Yes. Yes, it was. I had to fix my own breakfast. It was horrible.
Your wife fixes you breakfast. That must be nice.
It is. It's very sweet of her.
That's good.
Um.
You're a lucky
Anyway,
man.
Candy, definitely the other main character of this movie. No comment, Mark. You get yourself. Do you have a microwave in your nice little studio apartment there? 'Cause if you do, you're gonna need one.
I'm gonna get a mini fridge right here.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Anyway, Candy,
I
great
feel called
character.
out.
She's a great character. You're going to follow her through most of the first season, and you watch her. She's definitely, as we talk about agency, she's she's taking care of herself. She's trying to take care of herself, but she's finally, when she starts to get into the adult film role, and she's also like, watching her take over as a director at one point, and you're seeing her become
Blossom.
Yeah, it's
like
nice
a
to
butterfly.
see.
Can we talk about Candy for just a minute? And not my daughter's pronouns. I was talking about this in one of my many zillion podcasts, past, present, and future, about I was talking about this with Sean, that we meet a character. And the character is not bad. They're just having difficulties, and they have to go through hard times and learn a thing. And by the end, they succeed. They have learned a thing. They become a better person, and you as an audience member cheer. You're like, yay! This person who I didn't like in the beginning went through a change and became a better person, and I'm happy now. And that's good traditional storytelling. I don't know how much of that we get a lot in modern fiction, but I will tell you when it happens, when I can really buy into a character and you see the character go through struggles and they're not a bad person, they're just, in a bad way. And, and you're just like one failure, one setback after another. And you're like, you just want this person to catch a break. You just want them to cross the finish line, and have that moment. And that's Candy's whole arc in the show. I love Maggie Gyllenhaal's character. First of all, she's a phenomenal actress.
Yeah, she does fantastic in this series.
I can't think of a bad Maggie Gyllenhaal performance of anything I've ever seen her in. She is quite phenomenal, and she really fucking goes for it with this character. And it's not like it's like a super dynamic, over the top performance or anything. It's rather subtle, but like, I don't see Maggie Gyllenhaal anymore. I truly see Candy. What's like her actual name? Because I feel stupid calling her by her whore name.
Eileen Merrill.
Eileen, yeah.
Merrill.
Yeah, I truly see Eileen here, and as an audience member, I sympathize with her thing. I don't want a pimp. I manage my own money, and sometimes it's dangerous, and I get fucked up, but it's worth it to maintain my autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot stress the importance of women maintaining their autonomy, as I have learned. Facts can confirm. So, like, I get it, and I think they do a really good job of making that like the focal point of her character. And we see her get beat up. We see her have all kinds of problems. She keeps, like Rodney keeps chipping at her, trying, come on, you need a pimp. This is ridiculous. And she's like, I don't. I'd rather just get beaten. So, and which does go to a good point, because like on the one hand, we have the one scene where Cece, knows, what's up, and he ends up jumping the guy and stabbing him to protect Lori. On the other hand, Eileen's point to Rodney is, what's going to actually happen if I get beat by another John? Where are you going to come from? You're going to fucking jump through the window like goddamn Superman? Like, where are you going to be? You're I'm paying you, my pimp, so I can cry on your shoulder later and be told, go back out there and make some more money, bitch.
Exactly.
And, and Rodney, method man, like, it cuts me deep. It's like, it hurts to be completely called out on my bullshit. And then there's that changer, he's just like tearing into her. But the other side of that is, and so like, and then she goes and she has multiple conversations with the porn guy. And, and first it's like, we're not really doing porn right now. And then we are, but the margins are slim. And it's like, well, I want to help you. You're a nice gal with a pretty smile. And I'm, a fat schlub. And that you pay attention to me feels nice. but I can't actually do anything for you. Again, facts can confirm. Boy, when the pretty girl wants something from you and you can't do it, it's just the worst feeling.
Oh.
And so he's like, so he gets her a job with a different with a different pimp, this time a lady pimp because feminism, and it doesn't, and she's like, ugh. And then finally, like we're in the business now, we're gonna make movies, and then even then it's just like I only need you as a performer, and like once a month, and maybe after your face fucking heals. And and Maggie Gyllenhaal, the look she gives him when he's like, come back the Wednesday after next because your face is nya.
Yeah.
And she has been just kicked in the vagina, and she maintains a queen's grace in that scene.
Oh yeah.
And she just goes, okay. The quiet rage in her. Mwah. Maggie Gyllenhaal, all the Emmys for this show. She is outstanding. It is a great scene, and it is heartbreaking because she just wants to get up and rip his head off, and she's like, nope, a queen's grace, dignity and propriety, dignity and grace. I cannot act out right now. I'm never gonna get used. He'll think I'm a psycho.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's on set, and she's kind of just taking control of things. And it turns out it's just a funny thing because, like, you think about porn and it's just a static shot, people fucking, we're done here. And it can be that, or, and hear me out, it can be artsy. And she has an eye for it. And she, sex is one of those things where it's taboo. It's like politics and religion. It's not something we talk about, but it is a natural course of the human experience and something we all do, unless you're a Star Wars fan. I don't know. I'm gonna get my ass beat one of these days. Are you Mark Radulich? Is it the Mark Radulich? Yeah. Chris
I love Star Wars too.
Chris Bailey's gonna fucking shiv me next time he sees me. Fucking Andrew Graham's like, I'm Canadian and really nice, but fuck you, Radulich. Why are you picking at Star Wars fans? Yeah. It's gonna shoot me with maple syrup. All over me. Anyway, why does it always have to be weird?
No, wait a second. It's potato soup. It was cold potato soup.
Sure. Anyway, my point being, like, sex can be just as many things as anything else out there. It sounds like a dumb statement to make, but I'm saying it because, like, to have an eye for it, to have a perspective, to have a vision for what what sex can be, and how it can be presented, so that it is entertaining, so that it reaches people, so that it touches people. I don't know. All of that, and she does it quite naturally, like riding a bike. She's fucking great at it, and she ascends by the end of the series. And you're like, "Yay, Maggie Gyllenhaal! You became a porn director. You're weird thing to be proud of." But it's so true, and like you as an audience member, like you totally buy into it. Like she fucking won, a Nobel Peace Prize.
Harvey Wasserman is the filmmaker's name, and I love when he shows up after his car gets towed, and she'd been directing a little bit, and he kind of steps in, and he hears her like direct. Like, no, you've got to be the camera. The camera has to be from the guy's angle because we got to follow the action.
Right.
And he's like, did you just quote, like it was Hitchcock or something like that? I can't remember who it was. Yeah. And so he could, Wasserman could see that she clearly has an eye and is going to do well. And I think, I'm hoping as we progress through these seasons that he's going to just continue to support her as best as possible as he can.
Does. They have a long storied history together, and her
That's
arc going through into in the end of season 3 is pretty phenomenal. The stuff they do with her, not to pat myself on the back, but we call this the Radulich and Broadcasting Network because I'm a hack and I stole from Rush Limbaugh. And but I've always said, like, the true genius of what I do here is not that I'm such a smart guy and I'm the star of this thing, is that I found people that are as smart or smarter than me, but are passionate about different things than I am, bring a perspective that I don't have, and I'm able to give them a platform to express themselves where they might not have otherwise. It is a talent to step back and let other talent take the forefront and be on display and show you what they can do. and not have it hurt your precious ego. And I feel
Right.
like that's what he's doing with her. That's what I try to do here, is like bring people on and go, you be the star. I mean, you wouldn't know that from this podcast because I won't shut up. But generally speaking, I'm always like, come on, you talk, you show people what you got, because I think within you is something special and people should know about it. So
Right.
and that's what he's doing with her over time.
Yeah. All right, next up, Abby.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about her already. I mean, she's pretty solid throughout the series in regards to seeing her on the screen.
The least interesting character in the show.
She's going like to NYU at the beginning, and then
Mhm.
she's like sleeping with her professor, and then drops out of college. And she's very rebellious towards her parents. I would say, like, not only does she drop out of college, and on daddy's dime and everything, then like later on, as her relationship with Vinny begins, she's like going to go take him to go meet her parents, and specifically does not tell him what the dress code is. So in order to show up and piss her father off, that was the whole thing. So she's definitely got daddy issues too.
Yes,
But so she becomes a barmaid and works.
How much did you want Reggie to slap the white off of her?
Oh, I didn't hate her that bad. She's not.
Yo,
that
motherfucker taking
annoying.
pictures without permission.
Well, that shit. Okay, all right. You're right.
And kept doing it.
Yeah, she does like to push the boundaries.
Jesse,
of
my love,
Mark.
Marcus. Jesse, my love, Mark, my cancerous tumor. Ever been out with a girl, or even it doesn't even have to be a girl, could be one of your boyfriends,
okay,
and when they say something antagonistic, not me who's passively antagonistic, I mean aggressively antagonistic, and you're like, please don't do that, you're gonna get us stabbed, and they keep doing it anyway, and their whole thing is, but I'm in the right. And you're like, I don't care. You're not at this point. It's not about that you're right or wrong. It's you're saying and doing things unnecessary and putting us in fucking danger.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, I would like to scream the N-word in front of a Black Panther meeting. How about that?
Oh man. Oh jeez.
You ever been in one of those moments, Jesse? Ever been with
Oh my goodness. You think that's what Abby is?
Yeah, dude. She's okay. Pimps not known for their soft hands.
True.
They may have been known, and I don't know if you've heard this parlance or not, to smack a bitch up.
Yes, sir.
Throughout the show, Larry, Reggie, Rodney, Cece, all pimps, their names end in E. They all fucking rough up a girl. There's not a single episode of The Deuce where some girl isn't getting like drug out of fucking poor Leon's. Some girl, Slim Charles from The Wire, drug out by her fucking elbow and told, get the fuck on why you eating eggs for? Ain't time for eggs. There's money to be made, bitch.
Oh yeah.
Every fucking episode, every other scene. And this idiot, this entitled white bitch, is like, I'm gonna take pictures of Reggie because I look down on you. And I'm like, are you gonna be looking up at my fucking fist, you whore? How about don't fuck with the violent pimp, you idiot?
She, like I said, she pushes the boundaries, and I mean, aside from that, I mean, there's obviously there's an aspect of her that she doesn't respect the pimps at all. We already established that, and I think a lot of that is derived because
any of it. It was
she feels for the women. She feels that the women need to be out of that type of lifestyle, or if they don't want to be there, even though they are. She's seeing all of these injustices that are being bestowed upon these prostitutes by their pimps, and she disagrees with it, and that's why she is antagonizing about it.
Yeah, she's the poppy of the fucking Deuce. I disagree. Good for fucking you.
All right, moving on.
I love that you've now known me so well. You're just like, it's no point in arguing with you. I'm fucking give up.
We've argued. Sandra Washington. Not a whole lot.
The second worst character in this entire show.
Oh boy. So
Can we talk about her for just a fucking second, though?
Oh, absolutely.
Why I say that? Can we talk about how the pretty girl acts like she's interested in Larry Gilliard's character? What's his name?
Officer Alston.
Yeah, Chris Alston. Yeah, she acts like she's all interested in Alston, and she's not interested in Alston.
She's interested in that story.
She's interested in getting him to talk. And so she uses her wily ways and her feminine mystique to trick him into thinking she'd like a relationship when all she wants is his fucking information about police corruption and how the Deuce works and prostitution. And she wants to get him to get people to talk to her because ain't nobody going to talk to no reporter.
Right.
And there's I'm fucking bone in her body. Oh, and then it's even better. Because then she goes to work with her fucking half-ass story, and they're just like, yeah, and she's like, no, I work so hard on this. This is important. And they're like, we're running a fucking newspaper. This is not your charity project.
Name names.
Right.
And then she continues.
And then she's like, no, I'm passionate about it, and I'm a girl, so I should have my way. And they're like, fine, whiny, go and write your story. And then like, okay, well, the story's not really about prostitutes anymore. Now it's about police corruption. And they're like, nope, your story's about prostitutes. Bye. And she slams the paper down and she walks out with her ass high in the air. And she's like, I didn't get my way. I'm disappointed. It's like, you were told every fucking step of the way what this was and what we expected of you. We didn't even want your fucking story to begin with. And you entitled bitch, you got to do it anyway. And oh no, it's not the way you wanted it.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah, you're right. I mean,
no
she is
for this character.
I agree with you. Because
I'm sure if David Simon were here, he'd punch me in the face because that's not the impression you're supposed to get from her. But I'm sorry, having been the guy that the pretty girl uses to get something out of and have no understanding on their hand, I'm a little sensitive to this.
Yeah, at no point was she like, I mean, every scene that you saw her in, Alston had to tell her, I'm not the source.
Right.
I'm not the source.
Right down to the very end.
They start sleeping together. And she's continuing after, she starts asking questions. And he's like, I'm not the source here. I'm not the source. And then at the very end, steals the book for her. Don't name me in the paper. Well, you gotta tell me about this book. And
have I not?
They end up breaking up. I mean, I remember there.
Have I not let you touch my vagina? Is that not enough to throw your entire career away and
your entire career
for being a snitch?
Exactly.
I let you touch my vagina. Give me my way. And like, what a mystery. He said no.
Yeah. It's like, nope, not going to do it. So yeah, I agree with you. I did not like the way
the bitterest podcast we've ever done.
I do not like the way that she's. I definitely. I can't feel any sympathy for her. I understand she wants to make her career, and I understand she's trying to shine a light on.
Way through a story is not ethical. Sorry.
Yeah, well, you're right, and she's trying to shine a light on, this seedy underground, the seedy underbelly with prostitution, and all of a sudden the cops are in on it. Okay, great. I understand you want to do that, but you're going about it the wrong way by screwing around with the nicest guy on the force. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one. All right, Rudy. We'll talk, real quick about Rudy. He is the made man, I guess you would say, that got involved with Vinny. And he's kind of like the.
He has some great lines. He's like, I'm not greedy. If I'm making money, you're making money, dude. Right. Rudy is my spirit animal, though. Let me tell you, he's got some great lines on this. Like, he's talking to Vince about how much money Vince is making him, and Vince's like, "Are you falling in love with me?" He's like, "Kinda." All right. I dig your vibe, Rudy. I dig your fluid sexuality vibe. And then he's fucking the Asian prostitute, and she's like, make sure she's ready for me at all times. And even better, and make sure she don't fuck no colored guys. They'll stretch her out. Rudy, I have Rudy goals. I want to be Rudy.
Oh man,
he is the best.
I didn't.
Could you be any more fucking like concrete and direct? No color, and it's not a racism thing. No colored guys. I don't want big dick inside my tight pussy. I mean, I feel you, bro.
Oh man, I don't think they have a picture of him here, but I like Rudy backs the idea for that Big Mike comes up with
Mhm.
the stalled peep shows,
Mhm.
with the door and the enclosure, which is just, I mean, how long? I'm curious as to how long the peep shows have been around before Big Mike came up with that. It just, and then Rudy's like on board. He's like, "This is a great idea. I see exactly what you're saying here." And he takes it to the head guy, and the guy's like, "Yeah,
Real
let's get
moments
on
in
this."
African American history. Mike, the peep show inventor.
It's such a great idea. But
Mm.
anyway, yeah, Rudy, like I said, I respect a lot of the decisions that this guy makes. So, and he seems like if I'm going to root for a mobster, he's the one I'd root for.
Sure.
All right, next up. Ruby Thunder Thighs, we already talked about her. I mean, really, her main arc is she's one of the pros that's out there. You kind of see her.
Her arc is
every
that she
once
goes
in a
out the
while.
window.
Her arc kind of goes like this. That's horrible.
I've never gotten comments like after the fact on a show like Radulich, you shit person. I can't imagine I'm not gonna get it this time.
Oh man, poor Ruby.
Her arc went.
Oh man, it wasn't. Apparently, it wasn't a great enough arc that it didn't miss the sign for the bar on the way down. Because Vinny's out there, he's like, "Oh man, she messed up the sign." Oh man. Anyway,
We're
it's
laughing
horrible.
at this poor woman's murder.
Oh yeah, Ruby. Unfortunately, clearly she's a rather large lady out there trying to make some money, just like everybody else is. Gets invited to the parlor. She's not able to make it at the parlor, so she goes back out. And there's that. I knew something was going to happen as soon as she was getting in the car and Candy saw her and was yelling her name. And she didn't turn. I was like, oh man, something's going to happen to Ruby.
Yeah.
You can tell there's definitely a history between Ruby and Candy, because I think Candy goes over and visits her. I think it was her. And she had there was like a vest of somebody that got killed at the house. And, they had shared stories and stuff. But anyway, other than that, she's not got much of a, does not have much of a story in the first season. I didn't want to use the word arc again, just to get you started. All right, here's Bobby Dwyer, brother-in-law to Vinny. And so, I mean, yeah.
Pays to go with the union card.
Here?
Pays to go with a union card.
Right. So he gets involved. He ends up becoming he was involved in construction, ends up by the end of the series, he's manning the massage parlor. And he didn't want to get involved initially, but then he just, like you said, he sat around, he was drinking a beer one day and the two kids came in, one of them squirted him with a squirt gun. And he was like, you know what? I want to get involved.
He's a great, an example of people try to do things the honest way. And I think you could tell he's frustrated on the job site. He's ripping outlets out because they're the wrong brand, they're the cheaper brand or whatever. And he's like, no, don't do shitty work for the money that we're paying you. Yeah. But I think he's a really good analog for the idea of sometimes doing all the right things. Sometimes having a family, working hard, doing all the right things, and making all the sacrifices doesn't pay off in the end. Sometimes bad things happen to you anyway, like you get cancer or you have a heart attack, and you're looking at your life and you're looking at your family and you're staring down the barrel of endless bills and you're going, well, doing all the right things got me to this point. What do I do wrong things to solve my problems?
Breaking Bad.
Yeah, Breaking Bad's another great example of this. It's hard to look at Chris Bauer's decision to run whores and go and be too mad at him. And here's the other side of that. He's not the pimps. He's not Cece, he's not Larry, who are mistreating the women in order to maintain control of them. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm providing a safe environment for you to do sex work. I am being fair. I am providing you resources in order to maintain cleanliness. And I am treating you with the grace and dignity that this kind of establishment can afford. It's hard to then be mad at him for the choices that he made. It's not, and again, if not him, then somebody else. So why not be, the construction guy just trying to figure out how to pay his own mortgage?
Next up, we already talked a little bit about Officer Alston as well. Good guy on the force. Seems to be very congenial with both pimps and, obviously well-liked among his policemen friends. So
fair and just. Fair and just.
Yes. Yeah. And his main arc is getting involved with the lady from the paper. And it's unfortunate that he gets played like that. But at the end, I think his partner kind of saves him. Because he was going to divulge some information, but his partner tipped off the new captain. But yeah, you're right. He's fair and just. So next up, we're going to get into Pimp's territory now. So we got Pimp Larry. So if you were to characterize Larry,
first of all, he plays Chris from The Wire, and so the actor's name is. Let me grab it really quick.
Oh boy, best of luck here.
He has one of them African names I can't pronounce. That's like not even trying to be like funny or racist or anything. It's like legitimately can't pronounce this guy's name. Where the fuck is he? Hang on. Go ahead. I'll just keep.
You want me to try and pronounce it?
I can't even find it in the cast list.
It's right here on the screen, Mark.
I don't. My allergies make it difficult to see.
That's all right, sir.
Kabenga Akanagbe.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, dude. So like he had like a quiet menace to him in The Wire. He really comes into his own with Larry, and I tell you, he is the scariest, most fucking like he definitely has more menace to him than CC does, and he is great. I
thought that was what we were going to see. CC was the more violent one, which surprised me, and his picture is going to pop up here anyway. But Larry was the one that I thought was going to be the violent one throughout this episode, or throughout this season. And he really wasn't. I mean, there were some times I liked when Dominique Fishback's character shows up and she's like late. And he's like, I've been waiting out here till 4 a.m., which, by the way, that would be a hard time. Be sitting on the back of your car for about 8 hours waiting on your
in a time with no cell phones. Dude,
right,
I get irritated now. Where are you?
Waiting for that money to show up. But anyway, she shows up and she's like, go ahead and knock me upside the head.
Get it over with.
And he doesn't. He doesn't do that. So I don't think there's sometimes where he's kind of rough, but it's more like, he's just really stern. Is probably the best way to put it. But anyway, he does a great job here.
He does. He's phenomenal.
Absolutely. Next up, CC. Like I said, kind of took me by surprise at the level of violence that he got to at one point, because he seemed like he was more laid back, and like when Lori showed up, he was kind of treating her nice, which I understand that was probably part of.
I meant to say this before when we were talking about the pimps in the first half of the show. That scene in the diner where we're kind of antithetical to all this. I mean, we did talk about this. We're like, I went to a movie and it's like saw Fantasia.
Yeah, right.
I fucking love that conversation because and I said it 30 minutes ago. Sorry, I'm repeating myself.
That's all right.
I didn't think I mentioned it, but yeah, that whole conversation about how like they instantly knew like their whole power and ability to to manipulate and make money is fast going out the window. And they could all see the comet coming for the dinosaurs.
Oh yeah. But yeah, there's a point I think where he gets Ashley in the hotel and he finds her in a stairwell and he like cuts her pretty good. And I was like, well, I wasn't expecting this from him because he presents himself really, really nice. But of course he's a pimp, so his pimp hands got to be strong. And
my favorite scene is when him and Lori go to see Deep Throat, and they're like, "Let me in, because I'm a pimp." No, movie theaters don't work that way. You have to have a ticket.
Yeah,
it's like, "Well, let me in because she's an actress," and it's just like, okay. The first answer still applies, and so And so he storms off and, and totally throws a big old fat man tantrum.
Oh, yeah. I think he's clearly, this is all new to everybody. The whole film thing is going on, and he's trying to roll with the times. I believe he had it a little inflated in his head as to what her being involved in these films would entail. He thought he could probably just walk in anywhere and be like, hey, yeah, she's an actress. So I think the whole film industry is kind of, he put a little too much into what he thought was going to happen.
I mean, to be, as we all know, Jesse, to be a pimp, you have to have an enormous ego. A lot of charisma. And sometimes, ego and charisma only get you so far in life. Sometimes what you need is a ticket. Just fucking follow the rules.
Right. All right. Next up, we talked about Method Man and Rodney, being Rodney here, which he's only on a handful of episodes, but his character, who does he have working for him under him?
He has Thunder Thighs.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, it really, he doesn't have much of a story here other than his interaction with Candy was great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, his whole thing seems to be to bother Candy into leaving prostitution.
Right. And then we have, rest in peace, Reggie / Jerry / Jimmy Love.
Yep.
Who made the mistake of apparently beating his prostitute and Slim Charles finding out.
Well, no, it had gone on one too many times is what happened.
Yeah. I think, I can't remember if he was the one where Slim Charles kind of looked down at. By the way, Slim Charles, that's not his name. I have no idea who he's playing, who he was playing here. Leon, who manned the diner where all of the prostitutes and their pimps went into. There was a point where he told somebody to respect the woman, so you kind of knew that Leon was definitely it's a very much like keep your bullshit outside. Right.
This is a place for everyone to relax and eat some good food and talk and be social. This is not a place, and that's it. This is a place for respite, not a place for rambunction. And Reggie 2 and 3 times went in there and roughed up a girl to the point where Leon's like, I'm done with this. And then he tried to get sassy with Leon, and Leon's like, I'll just fucking shoot you. It's fine. Yeah,
he just reaches over, grabs a gun, and boom, blows that guy away.
Complete fucking Omar moment.
Calls the cops.
I'd like to report a murder.
Right. And that poor girl, which I know he had an interest in, at the very least, the prostitute that I can't remember her name, but she was sitting at the table or sitting at the bar, and she's horrified. And you're like, is she going to thank him? Because but the thing is that that girl's probably going through so much. She just watched a guy get murdered. Number one. Number two, that was her pimp, probably the guy that, even though he was very, very rough with her, and beat her, that was her way of making money. And she just looked at him horrified and ran out of the diner. I don't know if do we get to see Leon again at all in season 2 or 3? I really hope.
I don't know that. I don't remember.
I was hoping he would come back. All right, last slide. We already talked about General Richie. He deserves to be on the last slide here, folks.
Doesn't deserve to slide at all.
There was a comment somebody was making about General Richie, I think, in the parlor. Maybe it was, I can't remember, but where they were like, most of the women call the police on their pimps. There was a situation apparently where Gentle Richie had to call the police to keep his prostitute off of him. Apparently she was beating the hell out of him. That's Gentle Richie.
Jesse, we haven't been doing podcasts for that long, you and I, so you might not know this about me. That I have an affinity for the Black culture, and it's part of where I grew up and all of that. And and occasionally I speak in the vernacular.
You do?
And I'm way sarcastic. But one of the things that made me laugh, because I've been through this, I've seen it and I've been through it, where you have two black guys talking, or two black people talking, and you're just like, yeah, I agree with you, black folks, and I'm saying it in a way, in the same demeanor and the same tenor as you, and the two black people look at you and be like, please stop talking to us, white person.
Stop.
No matter that you agree or that you said it the way you injected yourself into their conversation, and separate but equal by law may be gone, but it still exists in the culture.
Yeah.
And poor gentle Richie, Alston's talking to, I think it's Reggie Love, and they're just chatting. And this is the scene where Alston's trying to get Reggie to talk to the reporter, and they're talking about like black people and everything. And Reggie's just like, yeah, sometimes it be like that or some shit. They're just looking at him like,
he has some like really hippie ideas too.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
like, he talks about the hierarchical culture and
mm-hmm.
this, and every time he speaks, it's funny to think of him as a pimp. It's hilarious actually to see him running around and trying. Well, I mean, he is a pimp.
Look,
so.
some doms are going to be of the sweeter kind. Some doms are going to be the more aggressive, quasi-violent type. It's all about what the need is for the individual being, that's the sub.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like the gentle Richie thing is funny, but it does speak to that not every dominant person in a relationship has to be cut from the same mold. Sometimes you could have, a kind of beta, sweetie, wimpy kind of a guy, but some girls like that. Some girls can confirm. Some girls like the beta type that top from the bottom. They get their way with whining and crying and sobbing and generally being a wuss. And, there's Gentle Richie.
Gentle Richie.
There's a person in my life who I may start referring to as Gentle Richie.
Boy.
I was referring to him as the emotional support boy, but
they'll be the Gentle Richie.
I will now be referring to him as Gentle Richie.
Nice. Very nice.
Before I get stabbed for doing so. It'll be fucking worth it, though. All right, Jesse, when we talk about being stabbed and it being worth it, that brings us to the end of our show.
To the end.
Yeah, so, look, all the David Simon stuff is great. We've been out this almost 2 hours now. Clearly, we had a lot to say about this show, and I could have gone for another third hour. Like, I had to stop myself that first half an hour, 45 minutes in, because I'm like, no, there's still much shit I want to talk about in this show. But, we agreed to not be here for 3 hours.
Wait, forgot.
Yeah.
One thing. You ready?
Yeah.
Clark Peters shows up for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
As Melvin Ace. So I forgot. We got to mention him because we're not apparently going to be able to mention him in season 2 or 3 because I think this is the only episode he shows up in this.
Right. Series. This is before he goes to Baltimore and becomes a junkie.
Oh man, that's from the Deuce to the Corner. We're doing that backwards now. Hold on.
All my friends are dead. Oh. For Clark Peters.
Oh.
All right, I love the Deuce. I mean, obviously, The Wire is my favorite of the David Simon stuff, but I would say of all the things that we talked about, of all this, of all the conversations that we've had, of all the shows that I've watched, it's like The Wire and then the Deuce.
Okay, all right.
Talk about like rewatches of things that I've, like I rewatched Show Me a Hero, and I got something out of it the second time I watched it. But if we weren't talking about it, I wouldn't have watched it again. Like The Deuce is one of the few shows that I would watch repeatedly. I really enjoy the show.
Yeah. I didn't know what to expect. Just put it that way. I knew that you kind of gave me an idea of what we was getting into.
I was like, when I first dubbed the series From the Corner to the Deuce, does it mean like taking a
nope.
shit?
I should have looked it up because I had no idea what this show was about.
From the corner to dropping a deuce.
And then, we find out that you tell me that it's about the rise of the porn industry. I'm like, oh man, what are we getting into? And it's kind of strange.
Gather around, kids.
I mean, David Simon, look at all the stuff that's come before.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there were politics involved. There's crime involved. I wasn't expecting porn to be involved. I'll put it that way. Because that wasn't what I was conditioned with David Simon stuff up to this point. However, what I ended up with coming out of this series, out of this season, was that, man, this is done really well. Again, he's created or at least executive produced a show that I really enjoyed. So I look forward to season 2 to try and continue to see what in the world's going to happen in Vinny and Candy's lives here.
Yep. I'm really glad. It's funny when we first started doing this, it was like, I gotta get Jesse to watch The Wire, and and then it was like, well, I'd never seen Generation Kill, so that'll be fun. And we're coming to the end of the journey is where I'm going with this. And it is kind of fun. Like the very last episode of this is going to be The Plot Against America, which I actually never seen before. But I have definitely in kind of the back of my mind and going, I can't wait till we get to the Deuce. I can't wait till we get to the Deuce. It's such a, I talked about this with Treme. David Simon takes you to places that most people don't go. Physically, mentally, spiritually, geography wise. He just takes you to strange worlds. And the Deuce, the Midtown Manhattan in 1971, before Disneyfied it, that is a strange place, a dangerous place, a place with. And the last thing I'm going to say here, and I was thinking about this with like Treme and some other things, like if you look around the world now, and I've been doing a lot of door dashing lately for extra cash, and one of the things that when I take my kids and we go is, we look at all the houses, and I don't know if it's the same where you live, especially with newer developments, but it's a lot of the same houses over and over and over again, a lot of the same kind of manicured neighborhoods. And you go back to the 70s, the culture of the 70s, and there was a very regional aesthetic. Things changed from place to place to place, and there's less of that now. And I think the world's kind of a less magical place because of it. And so I look at Deuce, and the Deuce takes you back to a time where, it was dangerous and shitty, but it was also kind of magical because there was no place quite like Midtown Manhattan in the 70s, to the point where a lot of stuff gets set there because it's such an interesting setting. When Family Guy did their Family Guy Through the Ages, like their show that takes place in the 70s, that was kind of like a Brady Bunch ripoff. Like the opening stinger is Midtown fucking Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
That idea of like, we are really dealing with the 70s was, 20 years after the boom of the 50s, right? And it's kind of like, good times are now. Granted, we didn't see Reagan coming, and so people really did think like, the end is nigh. America's largesse and plenty has run out, and Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford are going to take us into the fucking, take us down the drain. And Midtown Manhattan was the very picture of America in decline. And then, Nancy Reagan said, just say no, and the world got better.
What happened? I remember that.
Yeah. We're currently living in Shangri-La. All right,
this
Jesse.
is your brain on drugs.
That's right. This is your brain on drugs with a side of bacon. All right, so it's been fun talking to Deuce tonight. That's it for the week. I don't podcast anymore.
Whoa. You can't go and say that. Unbelievable.
Only the one show this week. We'll have some canned hams up at the end of the week. I don't even care anymore. Next week, however, Jason and I are going to be doing a civil court on trial. We're going to be comparing and contrasting the original White Man Can't Jump to the piece of shit that's currently on Hulu. The White Man Can't Jump remake apparently is just fucking. I heard myself explaining Mockbusters to my son on a podcast recently. The new White Man Can't Jump on Hulu is like the Mockbuster version of it, from what I've been told. Yeah, it's not great. So Jason and I will compare and contrast White Men Can't Jump. But before that, Ronnie Adams allegedly is threatening to come back on Triple Feature, and we're going to talk Guy Ritchie. We're going to do Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. We're going to do The Covenant, both of which came out this past year, and then Snatch, and that's the one that he suggested that we do. So that is next week. That's what I got going on. And we were supposed to do Men in Black a month or two ago, but Sean slept through it and pissed me off. So we're gonna. I was so mad. So we're gonna try again a week from Thursday. I'm done talking now.
Okay. Well, hey, listen. I have a podcast out there. You can check out the podcast feed, the Source Material Comics Podcast.
I think I talked a lot on this podcast. You just see me on Jesse's show.
Today,
Hey,
the
Jesse,
11th.
ask me about the history of punk rock again.
Oh man, I cannot wait to get in and edit that. That was fun. That was a good episode.
I went into a fucking zone. I wasn't even looking at my computer anymore. I was kind of like looking into the middle distance as I explained to you the short history of everything music.
Archie Meet the Ramones. That's coming up here pretty soon.
Yes, sir.
Today was a impromptu solo unspoken issues that released today, where I talked about the pack-in comic that came with your, I believe it came with your Sega Genesis for Sonic the Hedgehog, 1991. First appearance of Sonic the Hedgehog in comics. I did it. It was a solo shot. Hey, listen, you get to hear the background music for the original game as I tell you what's happening in the comics. There you go. There you go. I open it up with the Sega, and then I close it with the whole ending music from after you clear the level.
99.9% certain you got flagged for copyright, by the way.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
It's up, it's aired, but it's not getting monetized.
Oh, that's just ridiculous. How in the world did I pull that off? There's nothing else in there other than Sega music.
I'll double check it,
game.
but I'll double check it. But I'm pretty sure I saw the.
I'm about to throw something. I'm like, there's no way. Okay, all right. Well,
keep your pimp hand strong, Jesse.
Oh man. See, all right. So previous to that,
you can be a pimp. Your name ends in E.
It does. It does.
Rodney, CC, Larry, Jesse.
Jesse the pimp pan.
You ever get out there and be like, bitch, get out there and make my money? Who the fuck are you?
Sure.
When you're out there molesting people's junk?
I get kicked in the nuts a couple times. It's that's the way I like it.
I'm gonna start calling you Gentle Jesse.
Gentle Jesse. I'll take it. On the 4th, Supergirl Power aired, and that's where Mark Radulich and myself had a discussion about what was this first 6 issues of the Supergirl series. It came out in like 2007.
Yeah, like 5. Yeah, Supergirl beats up the DC universe.
Yes, and beats up herself even at one point. So it's a lot of fun. You can check that out too. So that's it for me, man. I'm done.
All right. So we'll be wrapping up the From the Corner to the Deuce shortly. Hang on.
We have reached the Deuce.
The Deuce, we'll be back October 17th, assuming I'm not naked swimming or some shit like that. For the Deuce season 2, and then the Deuce season 3 will be November 14th. See the first thing I said, and then we are wrapping up with The Plot Against America, December 12th, and then we will start all over again, January 15th. 7 seasons of Sons of Anarchy. So yeah, and then we're gonna be getting the band back together. It'll be me, Jesse, and Ronnie Adams once a month on Mondays talking Sons of Anarchy. So we're gonna, I think I've mentioned this before. We're gonna keep this kind of train rolling where Jesse and I and maybe a third party like Robert or Ronnie or someone just keep looking back on old television shows, peak TV shows that we really have a passion for, that we want to discuss. Because if I have to talk about boring fucking Marvel shows and Star Wars shows, I'm gonna eat a gun. So, so with that lovely thought in mind, thank you for joining us here on TV Party tonight on From the Corner to the Deuce. That is the Starch, who keeps his pin pan strong, and I am putting my family shit in the street. Be well, be safe, and behave.